How's it going? Now I'm going to talk about a subject that's obviously very sensitive, but I think it's something that we should be all talking about. And that's, to me, there's a difference between multiculturalism and multiracialism. So I'm going to talk about multiculturalism and multiracialism. How I view them, and there's a reason why I say multiculturalism has never and will never succeed, but why multiracialism could very much succeed. Now, you can have a street with umpteen different coloured people down it, and they could be all of one culture. They could be all English. I know someone who was born in Pakistan, but he came over here when he was very young, and he speaks perfect English. He follows, rock and roll music and country music. He's that obviously doesn't define what culture you are, but culturally, what I'm trying to get at is culturally, you would think he's an English bloke. If you heard him on the phone, you think you're talking to an English bloke. If you saw him at home, English bloke. He goes down the pub, he does whatever. He supports a football team. He's not really religious in any shape or form. He's just a very open-minded, a very he's very liberal kind of guy. But he's an English bloke at heart. He's culturally an English person. He even says it himself. He's been back to Pakistan twice in his lifetime, and he, he has nothing in common with that country now because this is his home, and he was brought up here, and he loves it here, and this is what he classes as England, and culturally he is English. So I mean, you cannot judge a person's culture strictly on the colour of their skin. And I think that's where people get confused. I think people get confused with the difference between multiculturalism and multiracialism, and they're two different things. As I said, you could have many different coloured people living in the same area. Culturally, they're all fundamentally the same. Um, but let's get to why I feel multiculturalism doesn't work and hasn't worked and will never work. I think it's a fundamental law of nature where you must always have an alpha. You can never have a ruling body with many different uh, attributes, factors, agendas, whatever you want to call it, paths, beliefs. There must always be a single belief or a single uh, thought, trail of thought, way of life, even if you want to call it that, in which everybody is working towards. Now, there are many different cultures in this world. You'll find that most are very much rooted in religion. Um, Europe is very much rooted, although I mean, obviously paganism and whatnot. There was pagan beliefs before Christianity, but the spread of Christianity across to Europe was total, and as such, the very fabric of European society is very much based on Christian belief. I'm not a Christian, by the way. I'm not religious in any shape or form. But so across Europe, the very fabric of its society, of its life, of its civilization, is based on the Christian belief. Um, but just because they are very similar religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, doesn't mean they're the same. Islam originates from the Arabian Peninsula, and whereas Christianity, I will take my hat off to Christianity in a sense that it's kind of tried to meet modern society halfway, and it has done well in doing that. Its attitudes towards gay rights, for example, towards gay men and gay women, has changed a lot. Its attitude towards women has changed a lot. It's without sacrificing its fundamentals. It's progressed. It's evolved in lines with modern society. Islam, on the other hand, has not and refuses to. And there are many religions out there and many cultures that are very much, I wouldn't say fascist or ty- a tyrant of a religion or such, but there are many religions out there that are very much not as liberal as the Western world, in which religion doesn't play such a defining factor anymore, but certainly haven't gone with Christianity and met the modern world halfway, certainly the Western world. And this is where the conflict lies. Because culture is very much rooted within a person's religious beliefs, how can the culture in which advocates uh, the almost dehumanization of gays, of women as second class citizens, not certainly not certainly not believing in any shape of democracy, although in fairness, let's face it, democracy is pretty dead, but certainly in liberal free speech manner, in the free right to criticise, shall we say, for example, and satirical humour, certainly can point from anything from monarchy to religion, you know, things like this, things that we take for granted, little things, but it's things that add up to our freedom, um, are frowned upon, certainly in terms of Islam. Now, I'm not saying that Islam is an evil religion. On the contrary, I don't think it is. I think the Quran, from what I've read, excerpts of it and whatnot, is quite a spiritual book, and certainly is perhaps even more spiritual than the Bible itself. Um, but I believe that Islam works in the Arabian Peninsula. I believe it works in those environments that are very much used to thousands of years of Islam. I think at this point in time, Muslims in Europe are looking to perhaps spread their religious influence. And they certainly do not respect, not all Muslims, but there is a large part that do not respect the land where they live, which I believe in the Quran states that you should do at all times. But a person's culture is very much in their religion, and this is where my multiculturalism argument stems from. I know plenty of people that whose parentage is in the Caribbean, is in various African nations, in various Asian nations, and they are as English as they come. I wouldn't class them as anything else other than English. At the same time, there are many different religions, certainly that do not originate from Europe, that are culturally different and as such seem to be at loggerheads. And whenever I've had debates with these people, you can see that their anger, that they get frustrated, and that they have a clear definition of what is right and what is wrong in terms of how you should live your life, and they are not willing to embrace or acknowledge even the way in which you live your life, which is a fundamental difference in terms of what we have become now in the Western world, in terms of open-mindedness, and what we have in the rest of the world, in which what they're very much used to. Um, so this is why I think multiculturalism cannot succeed, but multiracialism can. You know, you could have a multiracial society and all be of the same country and all be moving towards the same goal and all have the same uh, not likes and dislikes, but the same trail of thought. You know, um, but I think the biggest problem, certainly in the UK, is that too many have been allowed to just simply act as they would in their own country, just with the benefits of this country. And as I said before, in the video with regards to the Norway killings, I can see there being a lot more trouble, very similar to that happened in Norway, um, because people will only take so much, and you're trying to force multiculturalism on people, and it's not going to work. And the only way that even a multiracial society would work is within simply people integrating, and that needs to happen. If it doesn't happen, then you can't have any kind of society other than a single racial society, you know. But in my experience, it can happen. But people need to integrate with each other for the sake of the island in which they live on, the country in which they live on. If they're not happy to become English, to become British, then they shouldn't be in this country, you know. And it does sadden me when you see kids that are born in this country and they class themselves as like Asian, or class themselves as Jamaican, or class themselves as everything other than what they are in this country. And you'll probably find that their parents were born here as well. And it was only their grandparents that come over here. Um, so while all this is going on, while there is culturally people are aligning themselves with different cultures, it's going to clash and it will never work. I think a multiracial society can work with full integration and people still being who you want to be at home and still be who you want to be outside, but with an understanding and respect for the indigenous people and of that country, and to embrace their culture rather than trying to force people to embrace your culture in which you've brought into the country. So hopefully that clears up something of a multiculturalism and multiracialism. They are two different things, and I do believe that a multiracial society can work and can prosper and can achieve great things. I do not believe in any shape or form that a multicultural society can. I think it's against even a fundamental law of nature, in which there must always be an alpha, and I think it would just all it would create is clashes. And I think throughout history, no country has ever sustained a multicultural environment. People will often say, well, look at America, look at Australia, it's all based on immigration. Yes, but it was immigration, strong immigration from Europeans. And again, as I have said, the European fundamentals are roughly the same throughout the continent. And so the immigrants, the early immigrants that went to, or settlers that went to America, they went there with nothing, with foresight to build something up from it and to create a new land. So it's you can't really compare America, and especially with when you go to America, if you want to live in America, you have to become American, and so you're all living for that American culture, that under that one flag. And unfortunately, in this country, it's in the UK and certainly even across Europe, it's not been the same. So that's my qualms with multiculturalism and multiracialism. And I don't want people to think I'm some national socialist lunatic. I do have national socialist views, but I do feel that every person should have national socialist views, and they should be proud of where they come from, and that their people, regardless of what country you're in around the world, your people should be looked after by your government. And these governments should be made accountable by the international community to look after their people. You can't have people in government, billionaires, multi-billionaires, while their people on the ground are starving. That's wrong. So I am a strong advocate of national socialism, but not in the national socialism in the hate everyone, wipe out the world sense. You must understand this. I just simply believe that people from each country should be looked after by their government that they've put in place to look after them. And that you can't simply, by all means, help people that come over here that work and work hard, but you can't just help every Tom, Dick, or Harry that comes over here and 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 just abuses the system and putting your own people behind. That's wrong. And as I've said in numerous videos, that you gotta look after your own people, regardless what country you are. And if that country is not looking after their own people, then their government should be dealt with accordingly by the international community, in accordance with the majority of the population's wishes. Don't do a Libya, whereby you have a few people acting up and then the whole country falls apart. You need to find out, are the people getting the best that they can? I mean, certainly in Libya, Gaddafi's actually done a lot for that country, so I don't understand how people can, you know, accuse Gaddafi of this, that, and the other, but that's a separate matter. So, yeah, That's how it is. So multiculturalism don't work. Multiracialism, it works.